What's up guys, Ken here with you once again. Thanks for tuning in. All right, today's video we are going to tackle a gnarly drywall patch in the middle of your wall. And before we get started on today's video, let me just say real quick that I am a journeyman drywall finisher. It's what I do for a living. I'm going to teach you to do it right. I was in the union for 10 years and then I moved on to doing full remodels. I've been at it for about 30 years now. So I'm going to teach you to do it right, I promise. Okay, be careful. There's a lot of YouTubers out there who do these types of videos because they think they're going to get a lot of views, and some of those guys really don't know what they're doing. But so be careful. But I am the real guy. This is what I do for a living. So if that sounds good to you, please subscribe, help me grow my channel, turn on that bell so you don't miss the future videos, and hit the like. Okay, here, let's take a look at what we're working with today. Okay, behind me I have a huge patch. There was a door here. They patched it. There's gnarly gaps all the way around. It's not quite flush with the existing drywall. Let's take a look at what we got. Okay, here we go. You guys, my jobs are real world situations. These are real jobs, not a studio where we're going to teach you how to do a little happy patch on a piece of drywall that I have standing up behind me on the board. This is the real deal. So I'm going to teach you how to do it right. This is the same exact thing that you're going to be doing on your own house. Okay, so big patch, gnarly gap here. That is a full, just over a 1/4 inch gap all the way down. That's a gnarly gap. This side, not so bad. The top, pretty bad. But not only that, but check it out. The existing wall, I believe, is 1/2 inch. That patch they put in, that's 5/8 inch. So when you look at it from this view here, the side view, that patch is not flush with the existing wall, okay? It's bulging slightly. I mean, you got another almost an 1/8 inch there. So that adds to the challenge a little bit. But it's okay. It's nothing new. I've dealt with this kind of thing, I mean, pretty much since I started in this business. You're gonna have these once in a while. If you can get through today's patch, if you can get through this and it's looking good and ready to go, ready to paint, and it comes out nice, then you can get through just about anything. So stick with me. We're gonna teach you how to tackle this. Okay, so we do have a light switch right here, right next to our joint where we're working. We don't wanna work around it. It's not gonna come out as good if you work around it, and it's gonna be a pain. So better just to remove it. It's going to make our job easier and the finished product is going to be better. It's always a pain to have to work around a cover plate when you have a joint right next to it. Makes my life so much easier just to remove it. I got more room to work with now. It's still not a perfect situation. I mean, it's still there, but it's better. And I can't really just take these off and remove it or push them inside the wall. So it is what it is. Okay guys, for a patch that size, what I want to do next is mix up some hot mud. About 1 full pan of hot mud is going to be just right for what we're doing. We're going to pre-fill that big gap going around, but not only that, we're going to leave mud on that hollow side so that the whole thing is basically flush, okay, so that we don't have that big dip. The patch is 5/8, the existing wall is 1/2 inch. We're going to pre-fill, but also fill that hollow side so the whole thing is basically flush and ready to tape. I have about 1 inch of water in here. I'm going to throw some 40-minute hot mud in here, mix it up. We want it to be thick. We don't want it to fill that big gap and have it start running out of the gap, so it needs to be pretty thick. I'm going to use 40. If you're not experienced at using hot mud and you need that extra time, you might want to use 90, but just make sure that you stop and you clean up. I got 40 minutes, so that means I got about 30 minutes to work, and then I need to get back out here and clean up everything with the hose. You don't want it to set up on your tools and your mixing bar. You're screwed. Okay, check this out. See how much mud I got on my knife right there? I turn it sideways. If I wiggle it just a little bit, it's coming out. That's a little thin. I want it to be just a little thicker than that. Let's add a little more hot mud. Okay, that's much better. It's much thicker. I can turn it sideways. It doesn't move at all, okay? Even when I shake it, it's quite firm. It's coming off, but very slowly, because that's nice and thick. That's what you want. And we do have a nice new shower here, right on the corner, right next to where we're working. So we're gonna be putting mud here, and we're gonna be like less than a ½ inch away from this nice corner on this nice shower. We get mud on there, and you gotta clean it off. So just run a piece of blue tape down there real quick, then you're good. Whenever I blue tape around anything, the tape is actually touching the wall before I put the tape down, okay? Right? So I can actually feel it touching the wall right here before I stick it down, just barely though, okay? Come down about 12 inches, do it again. It's touching the wall, tack it down perfectly in that angle, okay? Touching the wall on that side, barely touching it. You can feel it. Okay. Okay guys, like we said, this is the low side, this is the high side. This is hollow. When I put my knife and I look down, I can see daylight right here because it's hollow. Over here, nothing. The knife is flat against the wall, no daylight coming through on this side. So what we're doing is we're pre-filling this gap, because if you don't, then you're gonna have air pockets behind your tape when you tape it, and you'll see those. They're called blisters, and you can see those even after you paint. But the other thing we're doing is we're making sure that this whole thing is basically flat and flush and ready for 2 nice coats, and it's come out nice. So, for this, I have an 8-inch knife. That'll work for this. As you can see, it will cover from here all the way to here. So an 8-inch works. But if this was a flat wall and it just kept going, I'd probably bust out the 10 or the 12. But for now, the 8 is gonna work out just fine. All right, let's go. I'm gonna do the middle zone, and then I'll do the lower part where I'll pull up into it, and then I'll do the high part where I'll pull down into that. When it comes to these big gaps, kind of go like that a couple of times to get that mud in there, okay? And then once it's in there, now let's go all the way, okay? All right, now that hollow spot is obviously totally full now. Obviously we're not done. I'm gonna go like this. I got pressure. On the left side of my knife, I'm putting pressure so that this is making full contact with the wall. The right side of my knife is not even touching the wall, okay? Go like that. I wipe off all that excess mud off of this. We don't need mud on this side because this is the high side. Now all I have to do is go down at one time. Okay? Nice. I'm gonna do one more. Good. Done. Okay. Now just like that, this whole thing is flat and flush and ready. Let's do this side. This side is basically flush. This side is not so bad. So this side's gonna be easy. Okay, all we're gonna do here is just do one of these. Okay? And basically just pull it tight. Okay? Done. Because this side's not bad. Okay? There's no high side or low side. This side is pretty nice and flush. So that's all we need for that. Okay. Another gnarly gap. Do a couple of those to pack it full. Okay. Okay, now this hollow side, let's put a nice layer of mud over that hollow side, just like we just did on the lower part. This top side is hollow too. This top joint is just as bad as this one, so I'm gonna go all the way up, about an inch away from the top angle. Okay, again, my knife is touching this part of the wall, but this side of my knife, it's not touching that upper part. Okay, I'm applying pressure down here, so it just pulls off all that excess mud off of the high side. That's good for that. I'm gonna go like this just to take off that top blob of mud. Okay. That's nice. Got globs of mud on the corner, so just go like that to clean it off. Give it one of those to take off some of that excess. Now one final swipe. Nice. Nice. Got a pretty big lap mark there, so I'm just gonna kind of go like that to feather that in. That's nice. That's done. Okay, I got a few pretty bad hollow spots there, which is going to happen. Done those in. My final wipe down, I'm going to put my knife against the wall, making sure that this side is making contact with the corner and this side is making contact with the wall. That way I know I'm pulling off all the excess mud, but this will be left full of mud, so it will be flat and flush. Okay, watch. Final wipe down. Good. Done. Like I said, this joint's really nice. It's basically like a normal drywall joint. So slap some on there, pull it off tight, and done for those types of joints. Easy. Also, I forgot to ask, if you could take a second, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the future videos, and hit the like. Appreciate it. Trying to grow my channel. As a contractor in Seattle, sometimes the winter months are pretty slow, and we're making just barely enough to get by. So growing this channel would be a big help. So much appreciated. Okay. You want to tape it right after you pre-fill. Okay, the hot mud is still wet. It hasn't set up yet. That's what you want. The tape is going to stick so much better, and it's going to bond with that and be stronger. If you wait until this hot mud is totally dry and you try to slap your tape on, it will literally fall off the wall. It won't stick. Tape, especially mesh tape, does not stick to hot mud that is already set up because it's set up hard, but it's still slightly moist. Nothing sticks to moist anything, right? So it's just gonna fall off. So if you wait until this sets up and try to tape it, you would have to put a little dab of mud on the joint every 2 feet or so, and then put this on so it doesn't fall off, and then wipe it down. And it's just better to always tape as soon as you're done pre-filling with your hot mud. Nowadays, our regular type mesh tape, you have yellow and you have white. They're both great. I prefer white. It's easier to work with. It cuts easier, nice cleaner cuts. It doesn't get bunched up quite as much, and I just like it. It's easier to work with. And so you'll see, when you see this, you'll see two kinds. When you go to Lowe's, Home Depot, any hardware store, there's two different brands. One of them, you see the squares? This is the one. There's another kind where the mesh tape is really fine and the squares are twice as close together as this, okay? I don't like that. The little strings come off the side constantly and you're fighting with it and having to pull them off, and it just doesn't cut quite as clean. And I don't think it really, it's fine, but it doesn't really, as you can see, the hot mud will go through these squares and bond with it really good. And I just like it, I like it better. Now, also, this joint, as we saw, was the bad one. A huge, over a 1/4 inch gap there. It's pretty bad. It's gnarly. The joint on this side was pretty much a normal drywall joint. There really wasn't even a gap, and it was flush, so it was good. So on decent joints, normal type drywall joints, totally fine. This is what you want. But nowadays, this stuff is becoming really popular. When I go to the hardware store these days and look at the drywall section, they usually have a pretty big section of the shelf that's selling this now because they sell so much of it now. It's great. It's way stronger, as you can see. It's going to bond really well with that hot mud, and it's just going to cover up those gnarly joints. And so it's going to be stronger. So you don't have to worry about getting a hairline crack on those nasty joints later on in the future. This stuff is just nice and strong, and it's really going to bond well with the hot mud, and I love it. So anytime you got gnarly, nasty joints like this one, I always use this. So let's do it. This hot mud It's not set up yet. Okay. So, slap it on. The hot mud is firm enough that I can go like that, and I'm not getting tons of it on my hands. The top joint and this joint were really bad, so we use this. Okay. There. The hot mud is moist, it's sticking to it, it's going to be strong, it's going to bond with it, that's good. Same with this one. Now this side, I can see it flaring a bit because this sheetrock is dry, there's no hot mud on it, there's nothing for it to stick to. So I'm just going to put a tiny little dab like that and basically pull it tight. Put a little dab and pull it right back off. And that'll just make that tape stick and bond good with the wall. And we're done. Now we let that set up and we do our first coat of mud. All right, guys, the hot mud is set up and we are ready to put our first coat of mud on. Hot mud again. But look, most of you, you're watching this video because you're trying to learn, which means you probably haven't used hot mud much at all. So I would really recommend to use Topping Light for this. It's Beadex Topping Light. It's the stuff in the blue and white box that you get at every Lowe's or Home Depot or any hardware store, okay? If you use hot mud for this first coat and you don't do it right, and you accidentally leave a little too much mud on certain spots, that spot's gonna be bulging and you can't sand it back down. Because when hot mud sets up, it's basically rock hard. So you gotta be really careful when you're using hot mud. So I don't recommend using hot mud unless you kind of know what you're doing. It's great for the pre-fill. You can't really mess that up. We're packing that gap full of mud, and then we're leaving some mud on the hollow side, and then pulling it tight. So the high side has no mud, the hollow side has some pre-fill, everything's flat. You know, you kind of have to use it for that. If you try to use regular mud, like taking mud straight out of the box or all-purpose, you would have to put a little heater in here and wait like 4 days for it to dry. So you kind of have to use hot mud for that pre-fill. But now we're ready for the first coat. I'm using hot mud. And if you feel you have a little experience and you want to tackle it with hot mud, go ahead. But if you're not sure, you might want to play it safe. Just use Beadex Topping Light. Make sure it's light. That's the good stuff. Yes, you'll have to wait an extra day for it to dry, but it's worth it if it's going to come out right. All right, now let's put this coat of mud on. You're going to watch and learn for the next couple minutes. I'll kind of commentate as I'm going, but really, sometimes the best way to learn is just sit back and just watch for a few minutes. Okay. Now, I want to cover this whole area, pretty much out to here. I got my 12-inch knife out, okay? So I'm going to come almost 12 inches over, okay? Maybe 10. I'm going to leave a thin skim, basically from here all the way over. So that there's a nice thin skim of coat across that whole thing. I want to leave just enough mud to cover this tape. I don't want to see this tape showing through on the first coat. But if I can stand back and I can just vaguely see that tape showing, just vaguely, that's okay. That means you left just enough mud on, you didn't leave too much mud on, and it's okay because it's going to get a second coat. But if you can see this tape really showing through, that's bad. Okay. Anyway, let's put a coat of mud on. What we're going to do, you want to do the middle section first, or you can start at the bottom and then go to the middle and then do the top. You don't want to do the top first and then the middle. I've seen guys do that. That's silly. Because then you can put a coat of mud on this top part to here, and then when you got to coat this section, you're working where there's already finished wet mud. It's done looking good, and you have to work into that when it's already finished and looking good. So you're trying to work with that wet mud area, and that's stupid. Don't do that. We're going to start at the bottom. We'll put a coat of mud up to here. Then we'll do this middle section, and that way when we do our final wipe down, we come down into that, and we're done, and everything looks beautiful. And when we do our top section thing, the same thing. We're going to do our final wipe down, we'll come down into that part that's finished, blend right in, and look good. So, let's do this. Let's start at the bottom, work our way up. Okay, first of all, you're always gonna have a 6-inch knife or an 8-inch knife in your back pocket. What I wanna do here is just go like this and then pull it tight. That forces the mud into that tape so that it kind of bonds with it. Okay, that's good, that's what you want. Okay? Always do that. Let's do both sides. Really forces the mud into that tape so it gets inside it. Bonds with it. Okay, here we go. Do one more. It's looking good. I'm gonna check this with my knife. That looks really good. When I put my knife on the wall, like this, to check it, if I pull it off and there's no line, or maybe just barely a tiny bit of a line from my knife, that lets me know that it's flat and flush and it's good. If it leaves a big, heavy, solid line all the way across, that means you got a little too much mud on there. So give it one more swipe to pull some of that excess mud off of there. That's good. Okay. Nice. Use the corner of your knife. Oops. Clean off that excess mud. Okay. This side. Work your mud. Once you get a coat of mud on there, go ahead and run your knife up and down just to smooth it out, flatten it all out so it's nice and flat, looking good. Okay, cutting off that fat edge. Now I'm going to do a finer white now. Nice. 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 Good. I'm going to cut off this fat edge here. You're going to use your knife as a snow plow, okay? Kind of like a plow. Like I said, I'm applying pressure on the right side of my knife. See, the right side of my knife is touching the wall. The left side of my knife is not touching the wall. That way I can come down and I can cut off that fat edge right there and it looks perfectly smooth. Nice, okay? Give you a view from kind of the side view, just to give you another angle, okay? The bottom section is done up to almost 4 feet. We'll do the middle section, pull down into that. Now I go like this here because I don't want to do 10 to 12 inches from here to here. It's not wide enough. I want to leave a nice skim coat coming over a little wider. We got about a 14-inch section here. A thin skim over that section is going to be just right. So I'm going to run my knife down a couple times just to smooth out those lumps and those lap marks. Make it nice and flat. That time, I pushed a little harder. I can vaguely, barely see that mesh tape right now. That means I'm done. Now I'm just gonna cut off this fat edge again, okay? Apply pressure on the left side of my knife. The right side of my knife won't even be touching the wall, and it will just cut off that fat edge there and blend it in. Okay? One more, perfect. Okay? Got some globs in the corner, just gonna go like that, clean those off. Nice, okay? Have a quick coat here. This joint wasn't so bad. Also, the hot mud that you use for this coat, when we did the pre-fill, we showed you how thick it was. It's going to be a little bit thinner for this, okay? Because you want it to be able to spread out and be nice and smooth. You don't want it to be too thick because then when you try to spread it out, it still could be a little lumpy. You want to mix the mud a little thinner for doing this first coat of mud so that when you spread it out, it'll lay down nice and flat and smooth. Okay? So just a little bit thinner than what we had it before. Okay, now I can just vaguely see that mesh tape right there. I'll grab the camera in a minute, but just because I can barely see it, that means I'm done. I don't want to take off any more mud than that. Okay, there. Calling that done right there. Let's give you a shot real quick. Okay, now like I said, you can see the tape up there, but just below that, I can vaguely, barely see that mesh tape showing through that coat of mud. And that's good. It's not blazing through, but I can just barely see it. And that's good. That lets me know that I have just the exact right amount of mud on, and not too much, because you don't want to put too much, because then it will be bulging. Okay, let's knock out this top part. And the first coat will be done. Oh, we got a little piece of tape. Kind of came up a little bit there. Wipe it down. Okay, just did that to flatten it out, spread it out. Make it halfway decent. Okay, I'm going to do a final wipe down right here, this whole section. Okay, one more on this side, plow it. Done, nice. I'm calling that good for that section. I can vaguely see some mesh tape, just barely. That's good. That means you call it done. Okay, let's do this section up here. Okay, so this joint up here is a pretty good joint. It's not nice and flush with the wall. You know, that joint, it's a slight bit of a bulge, which means you want to put a nice coat over this whole area. If I just coated like a 10-inch area, like if I just put mud from here to maybe here, it would not be enough. You would see a bulge. When you have a joint that's just kind of bulging a little bit, you want to do a full area. So with my 12-inch knife, basically we call that splitting it, which means you do a 12-inch wide coat of mud on the top part of that joint and another 12-inch wide coat of mud on the bottom side of that joint. That's a total of almost 24 inches, okay? And then you lay that out right so that it just blends in over a wide area and that eliminates that bulge, okay? So it just blends in. Oh, a little bit came through there. That was a bit much, okay? It's good. I'm doing some half circle type of shapes there because the top side is good, but the bottom side, I gotta blend it in with this here, and I gotta blend it in with that area. So I do these half circle shapes just to kind of get that area laid down looking nice and blend it in, and then on the bottom side, go like that, another half circle shape to wipe off that excess, get rid of that fat edge. Now it's done. Let's take a look. Okay guys, and here we are ready for the final coat. Okay, check it out. Very slowly comes off. But when you have that much on your knife, it's really not dripping off much anymore. Okay? That's the consistency that you're looking for. It could be just maybe a smidge thicker, but this is good. Let's do it. Basically what we're doing is the same thing we did on the first coat, only this time we're just going to do another thin skim coat across everything. So we're going to cover this whole thing. The first coat came to here, so the second coat is just going to come slightly past. That's all we're doing. Okay, now I'm just going to lay it down. Just going to run my knife over it a few times just to make it all nice and flat and even, consistent. Okay, that looks nice. Done. Plow it off that way, done. Cut off that fat edge, done. Okay? Okay, middle section. I'm not taking any mud off the wall. I'm just running my knife across the wall to lay everything down to get rid of all the lumps and bumps, and everything will be nice and flat and perfectly smooth. Now I'm going to do my final wipe down. Okay, nice. One more, plowing it off this way. And one more to get rid of that fat edge. Boom. Okay. Beautiful. We're looking good. If you're with me and you made it this far, you should be feeling good. It's looking really good now. 10 times better. Back of the high section. Check this joint, see how it's looking. It's good. Still a slight bit of a bulge there, but that's why we do 2 coats. That looks really good. Coming from this way looks really good. Everything is good. Just a wee slight bit of a bulge there from that nasty joint, which is to be expected. But this skim coat that will put a thin skim over this whole thing will eliminate that. So the whole thing will be basically flat. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pull it all this way just to make sure I leave a nice skim coat across this whole area. I don't wanna pull that way, I wanna go this way. And then my last, we'll do that corner. But when I load it up, I'm gonna just do this, just to get the mud loaded up on the wall. Depends on the angle. Now this time, I'm gonna go all the way up into that angle. I'm not gonna stay an inch away or a half inch away. All the way up into that angle. The final coat, you wanna do a thin skim over everything. See what I'm saying? Okay, now because the middle part is the part that's bulging, I'm going to wipe that down first. And I don't want to leave much mud on that section because I want more mud to be down here on the hollow area. And I want to take off most of the mud off of that section that's bulging. And so that way we can kind of blend it in, okay? One more time just to take off a tiny bit more mud. Okay, I'm going to call it good there. And I'm going to do my half circles. Boom, that looks nice. Nice. Another half circle. Nice. Beautiful. Get that top line good. Boom. Perfect. Now, like I said, the last one's going to be the corner. Give it one of those just to take that excess mud off. Okay. My final wipe down. Boom. Very nice. Perfect. Now we have a thin skim that covers all the way into the angle, all the way down to here. A thin skim coat of mud across that whole thing. So that's going to eliminate that bulge. So now this whole section will basically be flat and smooth, okay? So we're good. We're good. All right, guys, so in one day, we have this. We turned it from that gnarly, nasty sheetrock patch that it was, and we turned it into this. And the total work time was maybe 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. You know, we do phase one, take a little break, come back when the hot mud sets up, and go phase two. But really the total amount of time we worked is about 2 or 2.5 hours out of the day. And we turned it into this. And we're ready to sand it out now, and primer, and spray some texture. If you were going for smooth wall, then all you really have to do now is just sand it out, and you're done. Let's move on. All right, guys, the fun part, time to sand it out. Okay, a couple quick tips for your sanding to make your life easier. If you don't have one of these round sanding heads, you should really get one. These are so much better than the old square ones. Okay, it gets the job done twice as fast. They're great. Okay, so if you're going to be doing this in the future, you should get one. We're going to use 120 grit. 100 grit is pretty harsh and might possibly leave some scratch marks. Don't really need it. 120 to me is perfect. Has enough bite to it. It's getting the job done. 150, okay, 150 grit, it's too smooth. Once you've used it for 10-15 minutes, it gets so smooth that it's really not even doing the job and it's just making you work harder. So 120 is perfect. Sanding sponge, okay? Again, I don't like, you have like light, medium, and rough as far as the grit. You'll see when you're checking out sanding sponges when you go to the hardware store. I don't like the light, they're too light. Once they're lightly used, they're not doing the job. I want it to have a little bit of a bite to it to sand off those fat edges, get in those angles. So medium or even the rough ones are fine because once they're used, they're not that rough, they're just right. And yeah, you can use the light ones if you're really going for that smooth wall finish. Same thing with your sanding pole, you can go with that 150 grit if you're really going for that smooth wall finish, but most of the time it's light orange field texture. So like I said, we're going to do 120 grit on the sanding pole, pretty much the same on this. You want to buy a sanding sponge, okay, I have this cut at an angle. If you look at that edge, you look at it from this view, okay, got an angle right there, so this edge will fit right into the angle and clean out those angles. So I get up here, I get the angle out, when I turn it this way for the ceiling side, cleans out the angle, perfect. You can buy these that already have an angle, but that edge is really harsh. So when you go to clean that angle, this harsh edge will send out a groove on the other side, and then you'll have touch up to do. So what I do is I just take I have a hacksaw blade, and I trim off just a 1/16 off of the edge so it's not so razor sharp. Okay, so this edge is slightly smoother. It's not quite razor sharp. It's still an edge, but not super sharp, okay? So there you go. Let's do this. Okay guys, just like that, we are fully sanded out. Only took a couple of minutes. Okay, so now it's time for primer. In this situation, it's gonna be pretty easy. We're gonna redo the whole paint in here anyway, which you probably are too if you're doing a remodel. No need to mask this because I'm just gonna be able to easily paint around it because we're painting by hand.
The only thing I really need to do is run a blue piece of tape along this corner of the shower to protect this nice trim piece right here. So one blue piece of tape there, and then I'm just gonna bust out 6-inch roller. And I have this hat, this nice, it's like a giant coffee cup, and it's got a strap that straps on the back of your hand, and it's wide enough for a 6-inch roller. I just grab that, and I'll knock this whole thing out quickly with that. Anyway, today's video isn't really about painting. It's about how to finish a big, gnarly, nasty patch in the middle of a wall. Whether it's just one patch on your house or you have a remodel and you got a bunch of them. Hopefully this video helps you out. We now have a perfectly smooth finish wall here. It was once a big, huge, gnarly patch, but now this whole entire wall is perfectly nice, smooth finish. And if you're going for a smooth finish on your wall, no texture, you're ready to paint now. If you're gonna texture, like I said, we'll put a primer on here, do a little masking to protect from overspray, and spray the texture. If you got a patch that's maybe 2 feet by 2 feet or something like that, you can just knock that out with a spray can. Another video that I put out a while back, I teach you how to properly use the texture machine that you can rent from Home Depot and how to get a nice light orange peel texture from it. And everything you learned from that video, it also applies if you're using a hopper and a compressor. Everything I teach you, how to mix your mud, everything is the same. Because I mean, the machine you rent from Home Depot, that's all it is. It's a hopper, compressor on the bottom, all in one unit. It's basically the same thing. So, if you want to learn more about spraying a nice light orange peel texture, that video is there on my channel. If you want to check that out. So let's call this video done. I hope this video helps you. I hope you learned something. Leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Help me grow my channel. Hopefully I can do YouTube full time someday soon, and I won't have to do this until I'm 70. All right, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.